welcome to day 10 of the Flourishing as a Total Woman virtual workshop series. My name is Sherica Hymes, and I am the founder and host of the Total Woman Summit. We are smack dab in the middle of a global pandemic called COVID-19, aka Life Interrupted, and we have been having the conversations, discussing the topics that you want to discuss with the experts. We have left no issue undiscussed, no topic untouched, and we have been real. These guests have been relevant and they have been inspirational, and we are in for such a treat on tonight. We have with us Senator Katrina Robinson. She is state senator of District 33 in Tennessee. She is the 2019 Executive of the Year by the Memphis Business Journal. She is the 2018 Barack Obama Gala Woman of the Year. Top 40 under 40, not once, two times. Shelby County Ethics Commission, CEO and founder of the Healthcare Institute. Listen, I could keep going on, but we'd be here all night talking about all of her many accomplishments. But here's what I can tell you that I know about her just being in Memphis, in the same city and state with her. I can tell you that she's a mother. I can tell you that she's a nurse. I can tell you that she's an advocate. I can tell you that she is one of the newest senators in our state, and she is getting things done, that she is representing the people, and she's one of the few politicians that I have met that does exactly what she says and ran for the exact reasons that she said she was running, for the people, to make a difference, to be the change that she wants to see in the world. Without further ado, let me introduce to you our guest for the night, Senator Katrina Robinson. Hi, Senator. How are you?
Hello, girl. You make me sound so good. Woo! I'm take you on the road with me.
Welcome.
Yes, ma'am.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday to you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We're going to have a good time and a good conversation. I'm excited to talk to you guys tonight.
Absolutely. We are so pleased to have us. It's not every day that you get to have a conversation with a sitting senator, so we are going to make the most use of this time. I want to make sure that we do some systems checks for all of our viewing and listening audience. So if you guys, one of you can drop us a note in the chat and let us know if you can hear me and the senator okay. Okay, looks like they can see and hear us okay, so we're off to a good start. Thank you guys so much. Number 2, we have some game rules. Number 1 through 50, we're gonna have some fun. It's Friday night. We're already in the middle of a pandemic, so listen, relax, exhale. That's what we're doing tonight. Rules 51 through 100. You're talking to us, we're talking to each other, and we're talking to you. This is for you. Senator Robinson availed herself so she can answer your questions and get you the information that you want to discuss. So I want to make sure you know you don't have to wait until the end to ask us your questions. We're answering questions real time. You can drop them in Q&A or you can drop them in chat. And then we want to say thank you to my good friend Shamel, who is so gracious to be taking the notes for us as Senator Robinson is dropping all the good nuggets and wisdom and facts. So all you need to do is keep screenshotting. You don't worry about writing. Stay up. Make sure you keep up with us. All right, let's go. Senator Robinson, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're passionate about politics.
So I am a native Memphian. I grew up in Memphis my whole life. I graduated from Whitehaven High School. I'm sure there's somebody on this call who's from Whitehaven. And went off to Xavier University. I thought I was going to be a plastic surgeon. Oh, yeah. And so I ended up getting pregnant and coming back home. Kind of a dream deferred, and started living real life. And real life taught me a lot about what happens when you don't have the things that you need to have in order to take care of your family. And I finally got my bachelor's degree in marketing management, but I still had that yearning to be in healthcare. And so I ended up going to nursing school. And I worked in ICU very briefly, where I met some people who wanted to go to nursing school or to healthcare career school and didn't have the means or the resources to do so. And so I wrote a program to train CNAs. And in that, we actually gained funding from the Department of Health and Human Services to provide scholarships to those folks and to also fund patient community education. And then that spawned a whole nursing school, which happens to be the only independently owned, the only woman-owned, and the only Black-owned nursing school in the state of Tennessee. And that's where we are right now. And so in doing that work, of course, you meet people from all walks of life, and the things that you think are we take for granted are people's real life problems. And that's what led me down the road to politics. And I started getting involved with Shelby County schools, helping them rebuild their career and technical education department, getting involved with Shelby County government and the ethics commission, and decided to go ahead and take the run to be able to create laws and create programs to help us locally to, undergird our community and to be able to be an advocate for us because we weren't getting that at the time.
Wow. So first of all, I'm tired because she has already talked about 15 careers. So I don't know if that's on all of that.
You sound like my auntie.
I happen to be an auntie, just not hers. But Senator Robinson said, number one, because we want to make sure we celebrate women here at the Total Woman Summit. We're all about that and their accomplishments. Senator Robinson said, number one, she went off to college and then life happened. It was a dream deferred. Then she came home and she realized that people don't always have the things that they need. So then she went back to school, got her bachelor's in marketing. Then she found herself going back to school for nursing, worked with some people, realized there was a need, created a whole school, wrote some curriculum. Then was helping the school system because she realized there was a need in the earth, helping the school system with some curriculum. Then, listen, it just kept going on and on and on. She kept finding problems, but the common thread here, she kept being the solution. She kept being the change she wanted to see in the world. That's number one. I want you guys to know you can make a difference. One person can make a difference. So Senator Robinson, we are in the middle of this pandemic, and I don't know if people understand that you said that you are a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight we're talking about the politics of the pandemic, and we're going to get into that. But one of the things I want to just go ahead and put on the table is COVID-19 real?
Oh, absolutely. It's very real. So I don't know if everybody knows this, but I went to actually work in New York for the month of April. And as you know, COVID-19, the epicenter is in New York City. And so I was right in the middle of it. I worked in a hospital in Manhattan, and we staffed about 13 hospitals in New York City's health and hospitals public system. And these people are really sick. Of course, New York got the brunt of it because of their circumstances. I mean, they have a very robust public transportation system, so people are in close confinement. They have a large population, so it's more prevalent there, but it's very real for it to be the same way in Memphis. And so when I worked in New York, it was like nothing I'd ever seen in my life. And keep in mind, I've worked in a teaching hospital in the inner city of Memphis, but what I saw in New York, nothing could have prepared me for it. I mean, there were nurses that came with a true heart and wanted to volunteer, and they couldn't make it past the first day because of the circumstances. It was so bad that we had people that were piled on top of each other in one single patient room. They were turning waiting rooms into ICU rooms. We ran out of oxygen one night in the whole hospital because there were so many patients. It was just unbelievable. And to go through that and see that and be in the trenches and come back to Memphis and people take it so lightly, like we don't understand what kind of danger we're in if we don't put into place some of the policies that will help protect us, but also for the citizens to take it seriously where they are compliant with those policies.
So first off, thank you so much for putting yourself and your life at risk to go be of service and leaving your children, because she's also a mother to some teenage children, right? You have teenage children?
Look, I get to say this, my children grown, honey.
Listen, mine too. Mine too. I'm so happy every day.
Yeah, my daughter turned 18 like 3 days after I got back from New York. So she's 18, and my son will be 20 in September.
Okay, so she's a mother, and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so she went. What sort of fueled your decision to go to New York, to the most dangerous part of the country right now, the hotbed of this pandemic? What fueled that?
Oddly enough, I have been talking with my friends about having that itch to go back to bedside, simply because I have a large staff who teaches my classes. I handle the administrative part, of course, but it's just, once in nursing, you always have that kind of yearning to be of service to other people in multiple ways. And I'd always had the itch to go back in the past 6 or 7 months or so, I'd say. And so one of my friends was going to New York, and she told me about the opportunity to go with her, and I just picked up and went.
Wow.
To me, if I take care of patients here or if I take care of them in New York, I'm still exposed. But it was just having the opportunity to be in the middle of it and to see the burden that it would have on healthcare systems once it gets to Tennessee, to be able to have that type of insight and to see how Governor Cuomo has made such significant strides in containing the virus and making New Yorkers take it seriously. It was an experience that I hope to bring back to Memphis and to Tennessee so that I can be of service to other people. Right now, we're in a COVID task force group right now across the state. And so I'm able to share some of that information with the task force.
So is New York, are the streets of New York as bare as they say they are?
Oh, I should have sent you the pictures.
Yes. It's okay.
So
We'll share them. Make sure you're
yeah,
following.
I'll send them to you. I'll send them to you.
Okay.
Actually, I'll text them to you while we're doing this.
Okay.
So I stayed in Manhattan, and anybody that has been to New York, if you land in LaGuardia and you're going to Manhattan, it takes you an hour and a half or so to get there. It took me 22 minutes. Like, there was no traffic on the expressway. Times Square was clear. There was no moving traffic on the streets. You saw people out with their masks on, walking their dog, or maybe walking with their kids, like distance from each other, but there was no traffic going on in New York. Nothing.
Wow.
Like, I've never seen it like that.
What was the whole mood like in New York while you were there? Because I've been to New York. I'm sure many of you all have been to New York before. And it is, and I can tell you right now, I love New York, but I can only take it about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah, like my son. My son hates New York. My daughter loves it, but my son hates it.
Mm-hmm. So what was the energy like in New York?
Oh, so it was kind of somber. Very quiet, very still. The most descriptive feeling I could say was it was isolating, because normally New York is like everybody's in a hustle and bustle. You got to fight your way to get through the crowds. Like to themselves, it was just different. And then when you got to the hospital, you got to think about, these are nurses who are now taking care of their peers because their peers are sick or they've lost people. I was working in an ICU unit where the assistant director of nursing was a patient and he passed. And so they had to, allow people to come up to see him. And we had so many deaths that we had refrigerated trucks outside. We had ice tents outside for those bodies. But the ones that were actually employees, they sent them to the morgue so that people could go to visit them if they chose to do so. And so that type of burden for someone who's there every day, like, I'm a visitor, I'm coming to help. But someone who works there every day and has been here and seen people leave and go, and people who are sick or they're worried about it, it can be kind of taxing. And you could read the emotion on their faces.
Wow. And so first off, for those of you that are on the call that are nurses, I know I have a few friends that I know that are on the call that are nurses. And to you, Senator Robinson, happy Nurses Week. Thank you all for your sacrifices. For those of you that are all frontliners, but specifically to our healthcare professionals right now, thank you for your sacrifices. Thank you for your courage. You're the real superheroes, and we appreciate you so much. And we're covering you every day in prayer. So, Senator Robinson, that's a lot. That's a lot, and you're just telling me about it.
Yeah.
That is a lot. So what does that do for you for the public servant part of you? You see that, you mentioned that you are on the task force, and Tennessee is opening up. There's some controversy around sort of how we're opening up. 1 in 5 African Americans has the ability to work from home or to make money from home. That statistically is just across the U.S. Our good friend Megan, who talked to us about economics and money last week, shared that with us. But
Megan Motley?
Megan Turner.
Oh, Megan Turner. Yes, Megan Turner.
Yeah, Megan Turner. She's awesome. So you go and you now have this frontline perspective from the hotbed of the virus, and then you come back, and so then you're caring for yourself, and then you have the nurse Katrina, and then you have Senator Robinson, and now you put those two things together. So how have you been advising on the task force? I'm assuming the governor is on there. You guys are having conversations with him. How has that been going based off what you've seen?
It's been a battle. I will say, if anybody's familiar with the legislative process, you can't really get much done through process unless you're in session. And so now we're in recess until we go back June 1st. but I'm hearing rumbles that we may go back a week early. But during that time period where you're not in session, it's basically conversations and advocacy on behalf of your constituents, but you can't really, push the needle the way that you would like to. And so, of course, I understand people's reservation with keeping the state closed or keeping cities closed because people have to make a living. I mean, I have a business that has suffered due to COVID. We haven't been able to have classes. So I understand that part, but if I'm not here on the other side of this, then it doesn't matter. And so I think what we have failed to do is to come to a consensus where we can communicate the same message to people across the state. Or, I mean, even going federally, there should be concise, consistent messaging that says, this is our plan to combat this thing. This is how long we're going to stay closed. This is what we can do to support you while we are closed. And this is what we see happening on the other side of this. This is what you can do to help your family. And we've seen that in the past week when we're talking about beauty salons and other businesses opening, phase 1, phase 2, all of this stuff, but nobody's speaking the same language. And so when you have the regular everyday constituent who's looking to government for guidance, they have no reason to want to stay compliant. They don't feel like you know what you're doing. So if you're going to tell me I got to stay in the house for 2 more months, I got to go. And that's why we're seeing what we're seeing. And so there has to be consistent messaging across the board. There have to be mandates. We can't keep urging municipalities or urging counties to do what we would like to see them do. We have to mandate it. That's the only way we're going to move the needle at all.
Wow. Okay, so that's we need consistent messaging. And if it seems like I'm delayed in my response, it's just because this topic for me is just so heavy. But we need to have it. I have a business. I own a management consulting firm. The summit is, just one of the things that I do, but I have a management consulting firm and I have to pay people, right? I 1099 people. I don't payroll them. That's just a choice, but they still have to be paid in order for my business to keep running. So I'm feeling it. So one of the politics of the pandemic, Senator Robinson, is this CARES Act. And I've heard so many people say, I saw it. I feel it too. This CARES Act, they've said that there's money in this pandemic. Like somebody's getting rich off us being in the midst of this. Can you talk to us about that? Just because that's one of the politics of this pandemic. There are people who are saying now that everybody who could make money off of it have gotten paid, now they're willing to risk the rest of their lives so they can go back to business as usual.
Well, I think it's two sides to that. So, of course, we live in a capitalistic society. People are going to make money at every opportunity. So in the middle of a pandemic, yes, you're going to have people making money off testing. You're going to have people making money off of Uber Eats, whatever it is, they're making their money. But on the other side of that, you have large corporations who depend on everyday Joe Blow, the fight for 15 folks, to be able to fuel their corporations. And so if you tell these people to stay at home and I got to pay them unemployment, I'm not making any money either. So there's pressure put on government to reopen these cities and these counties and these states in this country because of the other side of the corporations that need to make money. And so money is, you can't get rid of money in politics. You just can't. Money is politics.
Wow. Money is politics?
It is.
Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
I mean, either way it goes, the way that the legislature works, if I say I want to pass this particular bill, and so I write the legislation, I talk to all the advocacy groups, those people that are for it, and the people that I know they're going to work against it to try to quell them, to make sure they're on my side and not going to work against me when it gets to the floor. Before it even gets to the floor, there's a fiscal note that's generated, meaning how much will it cost for us to pass this piece of legislation? How much will it cost the state? How much will it cost cities? How much will it cost counties? If that fiscal note does not make sense for the right people, there is no way you can get that legislation passed. I mean, and that's just how it goes. Even when we're talking about elections and campaigning, you cannot run a campaign without money. People fundraising and calling and asking you for money, they're not doing it because they need the money for themselves. They need it to be able to run an effective campaign. You cannot run a campaign without money. You cannot govern this state without money. You cannot govern this country without money. If there is no money, there is no politics. There's no need for politics.
Wow, that was a whole master class right there. So one of our viewers wants to ask you this question. They said, how do you navigate being a Black woman in public? I'm assuming they mean in public office.
Oh, in Memphis it's easy because we're the majority. But when I get to Nashville, it's a whole different story. So we have 33 senators. 3 are Black, and they're all women. And so, of course, we're the minority. When I go to committee, I'm the only Black woman there, of course. When I get off the elevator, I look dead in Nathan Bedford's face and go into the chamber. And so it's different. It can be isolating at times because I understand the plight of the people that I represent, but that doesn't look like rural Tennessee. And there are sometimes times where I cannot effectively communicate the importance of the things that I'm advocating for because it just doesn't register with other people who are in the majority. And so it's always going to be, in our particular state, we're always going to be the minority when it comes to leadership in government. But we are not the minority when it comes to the polls. And so that's what we have to remember is that, yes, take my race, for example. If I didn't have the support of my community, I wouldn't have gotten where I am. And that goes for anybody else who doesn't even look like you. If they don't have the support of the community, they won't get where they want to go. And I think a lot of times we cower down and don't think that we matter or don't think that our voice matters or our vote matters. But to be honest, we are the swing vote. We are the clutch players. So we have to make sure that as Black women, we empower ourselves. I was on a call last night and we were talking about empowerment, and I explained to them, empowerment is internal. Nobody empowers you, you empower yourself. And so as Black women, we have to make sure that we are using our power wisely and we're using it effectively, and we're not hoarding it, and we're not keeping it a secret that we are advocating for the things that we want. Because if we don't put that message out there, we'll never get heard.
Wow. You have to be empowered internally. No one can empower you externally. They can reinforce your internal empowerment. Is that fair? Wow, that's deep. Shamil's dropping all of that in the chat. Here's the second part of that person's question. Here's the second part of that question. What is your advice for other Black women in public office coming up? Coming up in public office, I guess that's what that means.
Looking to run or already in office, or?
Can you give us some clarification on that? Is that looking to run or
running
or what? While they're telling us that, while they're typing that, here's another question. You mentioned that it can be isolating. How do you keep motivating yourself to show up every day in session when you're the only person that looks like you? You are so good at making sure that you're keeping us informed as a community when you are in session, sharing your frustrations, sending pictures of sort of the facial expressions of your constituents and yours and how they're challenging you. In particular, there was one thing that happened. Can you share with us this story just to put it in perspective? When your answer was, I'm a nurse, what are you? And sort of everything that led to that conversation.
Oh yeah, that's the perfect example. So I think that was in summer study. Yeah, it was summer study. So we had the fetal heartbeat bill, which is one of the most restrictive abortion bills ever proposed, but basically outlawing abortion in Tennessee. And of course, in conservative minds, if you are advocating for someone to have a choice, then you are pro-abortion, basically. And for me, it's important for any family, any woman, any young girl to be able to make her own decision. I can't impose my views or my spirituality on anybody else or my morality on anybody else. I have to legislate based on people's real life situations. And so for me, the best thing to do is allow that choice to be that person's own choice. And so when we were talking about the fetal heartbeat bill, they bring in 21 witnesses. 21 witnesses. You want to guess how many were women? 2.
I'm sorry, what were I'm sorry, what were the other 19 witnesses? What were they testifying on behalf of?
Okay, we had a Southern Baptist minister leader. We had some guy that used to be in the legislature. We had some quack doctor. Like, they were just random people testifying. And this goes back to what's it like to be a Black woman in that position. And so, of course, I'm sitting on the dais, one of 9, the only Black woman there, of course. And we haven't heard from our women yet. The only Black woman that was there to testify was Sharice Scott from Sister Reach. She was the last person. They cut her mic off, didn't even let her testify, but they let these other people ramble for 10, 12 minutes, right, on nothing. And so the guy is arguing with me about the definition of viability, and when a baby or a fetus or embryo, in his words, have a fully functioning heart and lungs. And so he basically challenged me as if I didn't know what I was talking about. And this is a common thing. Like, when they come in and you're on one side of you're on one side of the position and they're on the other side, usually they try to discredit you if you challenge them. And so he was challenging me as if I didn't know what I was talking about. And so finally, I didn't mean to say it, but I just blurted it out, and I don't know, it just took off from there.
So for those of you that are asking, that's what it's like. It's very much like being in a hostile corporate environment. I've been certainly the only woman in the room, and then the only woman with some authority in the room, which is very intimidating to men who are used to the woman being in the room serving them a beverage or getting the room ready for the meeting. And how dare you have the audacity to open your mouth and not be intimidated or bullied because you're the only one. Because interestingly enough, what Senator Robinson said is he was arguing with her. They weren't having a respectful exchange of different ideas. He was trying to overtalk her. I just remember the description from that. So that's what it's like. So you have to have a certain amount of fortitude for that. Where does that come from? How do you keep showing up doing that every day?
Well, I mean, I'm from Whitehaven, so you know, I done raised 2 children. There's nothing that I can go through that I can't answer to. You know, it's just you have to have thick skin, and you have to stay on message and stay on the topic, because sometimes people get caught in these whirlwind ideas of their own that have nothing to do with the facts that actually determine the outcome of what you're there to decide. And it's just important to me. I have to be conscious of what I say, and I'm still working on that, because people send me screenshots of my facial expressions, or I might like talk after I turn the mic off because somebody's pissed me off. But it's just, you know, that's part of growing and maturing in leadership, is that I know what I'm there to do. I just have to refine the way that I do it. But you know, the thing about that is just being able to grow in leadership, but also stay true to who you are.
That is so good, that refining yourself as a leader, that is so rich. You have to be open to the continuous process of evolution as a person, as a professional, certainly, and continue to be in pursuit of being the best version of yourself. That is so good. So tell me this. It would be much easier, it sounds like, to just go with the flow. How are you, because it seems like the opposition, right? There are more of them than there are of you. How are you maintaining your position, especially as you're talking about what you know medically, right? Because you are a nurse, which is how we got on that, because her end statement was, I'm a nurse, what are you? And I was at home clapping. It was already over. It was the review. I was like, she told him, okay. I was so proud. But yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate your courage. But my question is, how do you maintain your integrity of self on this task force for COVID-19? Because not only are you a woman, you're a Black woman. You're in one of the poorest cities in the state. We have such high pay inequities, and you know, our poverty numbers are frightening. And so you're in there as not only a public servant, you're in there as someone who is a nurse, so you understand the facts of all of this. You're going in there with all of this knowledge, and quite quite possibly more knowledge from a lot of different viewpoints than some of your constituents. And so, how are you able to sit at that table and have these conversations with them and still fight for what's right?
You know, one of my peers, I don't know if you know her, Senator Sarah Kyle. She was
Mm-hmm.
like my biggest cheerleader when I ran for office. She was out there waving signs on the corner for me and everything. But one thing she taught me, she said, Katrina, you got two audiences. You got one up here and you got one at home. The one up here you handle differently than you handle the one at home. The one at home is who you are loyal to. The one here is the one that you learn how to handle. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like you said in the beginning, when I ran for office, I didn't run for show. I didn't run because it was something that was on my bucket list. I ran because I wanted to make sure that there was somebody in the room, somebody at the table who cared about people like me in the state that I was in then, and like I was 10, 20 years ago when I was in the back row of my class with my kids. Like, there has to be somebody who understands what we go through at home. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you go to the legislature, there are only, like I told you, there are only three of us. And so that message has to be resounding every day. The old saying says the squeaky wheel gets the oil. If you don't keep having those same conversations and keep driving the message home, it won't happen. And I just have to be cognizant of why I was sent there, what people expect of me, because there's no way I can come and show my face to my constituents and I know that I didn't do what I was supposed to do. That's one of the things that, for me, that's one of my personal things. Like, I'm one of those people that I don't like to not do what I said I was going to do.
Mm.
And that carries forth with my kids, with my business, with my life, whatever it is. And that is what keeps me on track when I get ready to go into that committee room, when I get ready to go into that chamber. It's making sure that I am still doing what I was hired to do.
Well, that pursuit of integrity and commitment to community has not come at no expense. I do recall seeing that someone ordered a search of your home. What's the cost of walking in integrity and standing for what you believe in and your commitment to community? What has the cost been to you so far?
You know, there is a cost. And I think people, when we decide to run for office or we decide that we want to be in leadership, we don't really think about every aspect of it. Yeah, if I go into the grocery store, hey, Senator Robinson, how are you? Or, yeah, Senator Robinson, you can skip me in line. No, I don't need to. But there's always the other side of that too, which is, okay, you're doing a little bit too much, or you're moving a little bit too fast, or you may be a threat to this person. And so you have to be, I don't want to say paranoid, but I've learned that access is not to be extended as easily as it has been. You have to be careful about people that you allow access.
Mm-hmm.
Your access has value, and you have to be careful about the people that you put into positions around you. And so if I don't answer calls, it's for a reason. You better text me and tell me who you are when you call my phone. Um, if I'm not friendly, it's for a reason. Not that I'm being mean. It's just I want to make sure that this friendship is a genuine friendship, because you have people who want to be around you for certain reasons, whatever their motivation is. But I'm a warm person most times, and so it can be hard. I'm a hugger. It's just hard it's hard to cut that off. And
Mm-hmm.
um, that's one of the things that you have to learn to do. I told my mom when I first got to Nashville, I would walk the halls and it just seems like people were talking to you, but not looking you in your eye, like looking through you. I don't know if I'm
No,
describing it.
I know what that means. How many of you, by show of hands, use your raise your hand tool, have been in that situation where people are talking to you, but yep, everybody's hand is almost everybody's hand is up.
Yeah. And so and I noticed that was the trend. Like, most of the people who are in office don't really look at you. You know what I'm saying? Like, they're just it's kind of like, okay, this is my boundary. Yeah, she's a nice girl, but I don't want to get too close. Next. And I haven't adopted that yet.
Wow. Wow. So, Senator Robinson, can you share with us? It looks to me, I just have decided that I can only consume the news once a day because it seems to me like our country has been hijacked. Um, and if I wasn't a woman of faith and a woman who really understood how my vote helps change what I see on TV, then I would be very discouraged and I would be paralyzed. But has our country been hijacked?
Mm, I think, yeah, to be honest with you, we've been hijacked by a number of people or things. Our kids have been hijacked by social media and the music industry. Our society has been hijacked by the media. Our government has been hijacked by imposters and narcissists. So, yeah, we're in danger, girl. So
Mm-hmm.
we have to, get ourselves together and make sure that we are mobilizing the folks who are most affected. We're not showing up, and then you got these irresponsible influencers or hip hop industry folks who are telling us to withhold the black vote, make them work for your vote. Work for what vote? Go vote. You see where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be here 2 more years, or even further down the line, 2 years from now, just because you withheld your black vote because Diddy said so. You know, there's just
Well,
I think there's a lot of irresponsibility in media.
wow. We're going to get to that. I'm going to pause real quick. Senator Robinson, it looks like the sun is set. When we started, the sun was shining, and you've lost a little bit of light. We want to make sure we see you. Thank you so much. All right. So you said, yeah, we don't even get me on the whole rap artists or music artists who has decided that they are now responsible for the people. So, but I will ask you this question. What's the connection in where we are right now and going to the polls in your hometown, going to vote? What's the connection? Because many people don't see the connection.
I don't know how. So if there was no connection, okay, all I can do is use personal experience.
Okay.
Look at me. I'm a woman who was a single mother, no political background, no pedigree, no
Mm-hmm.
connections, no money. I ran for office and y'all voted me in, and I beat a man 2-1 who had been in office for 12 years. Tell me how that happens if people are not showing up. In my race, we traditionally in that race, you would see 14 to 15,000 people come out. I had 21,000 people to come out in that race. Why? Because I mobilized people. We talked to people. I went from Orange Mound to Hickory Hill to Germantown to East Memphis to Fox Meadows, dancing on roofs with the youth, going to the Rotary Club. Like, I talked to everybody. Traditionally when people are taught to run for office, they're taught to talk to people who have voted in the last 3 to 4 elections just like theirs, but we talked to people who weren't even registered. So when it was time to go for early voting, I had kids showing up saying, Ms. Robinson, you inspired me. I came here to cast my vote for you. This is the first time I voted. Or I had a young man who told me he never even voted before. He was 36 years old, but he showed up to vote for me. And so we have to be inspired by that, to keep having these conversations and quit casting people aside because they're not as politically adept as us, or they're not as educated, or they haven't participated before. When I showed up at the Shelby County Democratic Party, I'd never even been to a meeting before, but I knew that I wanted to get involved. And so we have to embrace people who genuinely want to change, who genuinely want to get involved and want to see things happen. And that only happens by those who are already educated, those who are already involved, extending their olive branch to do so. If we gather people who have not been involved before, you'll start to see change. You'll start to see some catalysts just grow from the community. I just got sick of going to every political event. You see the same people over and over and over again. And I started just inviting people. So you see random people at my stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But until we start doing that more and more, we're going to have the same outcomes. We have to show up and vote. People think that, local elections are where it's at. Yeah, But federal elections are as well. But we can't show up every presidential election and not show up for our city council elections, show up for our county commission, our mayor. That is what makes the difference. Our governor's race, that is what makes the difference. Because locally, COVID is a perfect example. Yeah, we got a clown in the White House who says, okay, I'll leave it up to the governors to do what they want to do.
Clown. Oh,
I'm
clown.
sorry, I said that out loud. See, I told you I had to work on refining my leadership.
Me
Okay.
too.
So yes, we have a president in office who says, I'm gonna let the governors do what they want to do. And so now we're left in the hands of the governor. Memphis, you're left in the hands of your mayor. Shelby County, you're left in the hands of your mayor and your county commission. And that is the perfect demonstration of what happens if you don't have the right leadership in every capacity, because things could go awry at any moment if the governor says one thing and your mayor says another.
So there's a connection, people, while you're staying at home waiting for that every fourth year to vote.
Right.
This is how we get here. Ms. Tawan this morning shared with us in our conversation, our first segment, she talked about what the role of the city council and the commissioners and the mayors were, and then rolled us all the way up till we got to governors and then the senators, and then we went all the way up to the congressmen, and how the House and the Congress is responsible for holding the presidency accountable, and how we get here. But if we don't have the right people in the right place, every level holds every person accountable and does what's right for their community. So we have to vote. Right. So Senator Robinson, will you explain to us, we should be concerned, how can we get involved? How can we make a change?
Oh, there's so many things. So right now, number one priority is to fill your census out. If you have not filled out your census, you're late. Fill out your census. The reason why you do that, and you can do it online now, nobody even has to knock at your door anymore. You can do it online. There's no excuses. The reason why you do that is to make sure that you have adequate representation. The census determines what type of resources the community has, how many people you have for representatives, who represents you. When we get ready to do redistricting and we decide what our districts are going to look like, I'm sure you all know Tennessee used to have a Democratic majority in our state legislature, and then when we did redistricting, now we have a Republican majority because they carved out so many districts, like they look crazy if you were to look at a map. And so that is what the census kind of dictates, how we have representation. That's the first thing. Second thing is, there are races that are going on right now. We have state races going on. We have some county races going on, school board. If you are not familiar with who's running, you can go to shelbyvote.com, and it will show you who's in each of those elections. Become familiar with those candidates. Reach out to those candidates. Offer help on their campaign. You don't necessarily have to give money. I would rather you volunteer, knock doors for me than to give me some money, because guess what? That's free anyway. And so if you knock doors for them, you can make phone calls for candidates, gather your friends up and have girls' night, wine, cheese, whatever you want to do, make phone calls to talk about those candidates, and ultimately show up and vote. And when you vote, don't just you vote, you take other people with you to vote. I don't care if you go and rent a van out of the kindness of your heart, $70, rent a van and take people to vote. If we're going to do this, we have to do it the grassroots way. There's no other way. It's not going to be handed to us. Nobody's going to help us. And so we have to do it from start to finish.
Wow. So let's answer one of these questions. It says, should we trust the antibodies test for COVID-19 and once this pandemic started so they can force antibiotics on us?
Force antibiotics?
I guess it's two questions. I tried to put them together. So the first one is, should we trust the antibodies test for COVID-19? And then the second question is, did they create this virus so they could force, I don't think they meant antibodies. I think they meant so they could force vaccines on us.
I get it. Okay, so the antibody tests, I have heard differing opinions on them. as far as the accuracy and the integrity of the testing. I do think that antibody testing is one of the most integral parts of containing this virus, only because I would rather have antibody testing than vaccine any day. As far as the virus being created for vaccines, I have my, my theories, but I don't think it's for vaccines. For me, I always thought it was bioterrorism gone left. Like somebody did this. But no, I don't think the the gist of it was to, push vaccines on us. But if there is a vaccine available, we probably would have to take it. Like I can foresee us, like even for our kids to go back to school, that they will require for them to have the vaccine. I can see that happening.
Wow.
Yeah, if it's ever developed. But if you look at the numbers, the scary part about COVID-19 is not the deaths, it's not the cases, it is the unknown. We don't know how to treat it. We don't know what to do with it. Of course, we were trying to treat it with lupus drugs at first, and that didn't work. I heard that China was treating with high dose vitamin C, 20,000 milligrams of vitamin C. But the scary part is we don't have, there's no, like I told somebody, there's no ICU protocol for coronavirus. It's just, we'll throw whatever we got at it and see if it works. That's the scary part. We know what we can do for the flu. We can pretty much, see how, we pretty much know how that turns out. But for coronavirus, it's just scary because we don't know.
Wow. So then this leads us to another question. What does normal look like for us now? Host, stay home, safer at home, isolation, quarantine, wherever you find yourself in that spectrum.
Normal is gonna look, I thought about that. I don't know. When I thought about how New York looks now. And so normal for them is people out with masks on, waiting in line to go into the stores, rationing for groceries, no more hugs. We're doing elbow bumps. It's just, I don't know if that's going to be the forever new norm. I just think that that's how it is now, but I think people are very lax about it, so it probably won't last. But if you want to see how it's going to look, I would look at how the Spanish flu looked 200 years ago. It lasted a year and a half, almost 2 years, and we're ready to go to Happy Mexican in 2 months. So, there's nothing different about this. It's the same MO, just a different disease. And so the world got back to normal after the Spanish flu. So I'm sure we can do the same with COVID-19 if we're smart about it.
Wow. And so then we're in the middle of an election year to unseat said clown. I said it, she didn't. Don't at me. For said clown. And we are in the middle of an election year. What impact does this pandemic have on this year's presidential election?
I don't know. My best thermometer is what I observe people saying. You can't give me $1,200 and think I'm gonna vote for you in November. Like, that's not cool. And then I got to give it back to you next year anyway. So it doesn't work that way. So I think, part of the other part is we're having issues with, people making exceptions for us to be able to carry out elections with integrity during the pandemic. So, not being able to file absentee ballots. And so there's going to be some issues, of course, with election integrity. And of course, those who are in the majority and in power will have the most influence on that.
What can you do from your position, and then how can you mobilize and educate the communities in which you serve to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to resist that? First, what can you do, or any other senator do?
So what we have done is put some pressure on our governor to make sure that we have provisions in our election laws where if we are in a pandemic and we are supposed to be quarantined or are not able, or people are not open to going to the polls for fear of getting sick or fear of being exposed to the virus, that we have provisions in place where they can vote absentee. And so that conversation has been started, even though your governor says that that's not on his high level of priorities, and so he hasn't read our letter, but whatever. So that's where it starts. And then the rest of that is communicating to the community, like, this is what the provision is right now. This is what we got approved. And if we don't get it approved, this is what we can do in order for you to be able to vote, but you still have to vote. As a matter of fact, you have to vote now more than you ever had to vote. That should be the message. And so that's what I can do, is just make sure that there are laws in place that allow for us to have safe and sound elections.
Wow. So you talked a little bit about if you're unhappy that your Elizabeth Warrens or your oh my goodness, why does it Bernie's are out of the race? That's me, not her. If they're out of the race now and your candidate is no longer in, or your favorite candidate is in, that you talked about, you cannot not vote for someone. Can you tell us a little bit more about why that's so important? If your favorite person is no longer in the race, why you have to vote?
Yeah, you cannot dilute the vote because your favorite person is not there. It's like saying, I don't want to eat today because you don't have French fries. Like, you have to eat. So you have to vote. So I don't care if you're a Bernie head or you love Warren, this is who you got. And so would you rather have this or would you rather have that? And you know, I think the initial shock of my candidate didn't make it or my candidate conceded, I think that'll wear off. And I think in all, you'll have people who, you know, they show up and vote, but they probably aren't as energized or as motivated to help mobilize the vote or to galvanize people to get to the polls. But they will do their part. Mm-hmm. I just don't see anybody being that crazy. Unless you have people of influence who say, you know, we're in a better position now because your president gave you $1,200 and we got the PPP and we got this and we got that since he's been in office. When they're talking about, I had this debate on somebody's post the other day about all this stuff that your orange president has done for the Black community, when these have been initiatives that grassroots organizations have been pushing for 10, 12 years. Like I said, with us in the legislature, I may have a great piece of legislation that the Republican Party wants to have credit for, and they will shoot mine down and bring the same bill back the next week and pass it and put it in the press. It's the same thing that happens nationally. And so we get confused or we get jaded thinking that this is what it is, and he doesn't give a care about you.
And can we go ahead
and say that anybody else does any more than he does, but you'll be in a better position. I mean, there's a balance of power when you think about the presidential office versus Congress and the Senate. So, you know, it'll all shake out.
And so let's be clear too about these dollars, just so you're clear. They didn't give you anything. These are your tax dollars.
Right.
Okay.
You got the money that you let them borrow that they're going to make you pay back.
Right. And on top of that, you also gave the millions of dollars to the big small businesses that qualify for PPP through those little exceptions and those little loopholes. That's your money. That's my money. We gave that to them. The federal government gets its money from the citizens of the United States.
Right.
Well, get in the know.
Okay? Okay, let me explain this. Your country runs off money that you let them borrow. When you file your taxes, that's just you getting money back that you let the country borrow.
Interest, might I add.
Right. And sometimes they say, well, you didn't let us borrow enough money. Give us some more. Mm-hmm. So people, like, you have to understand, like, there was no gift. There was no support. If it was, it would be a recurring amount that you can actually feed your family off of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the game is so, people. This extra unemployment too. One of the reasons I believe, because this is my HR background, that people are really lobbying for people to go back to work is so that bill won't be on the government. That bill will be on the last employer that you had. Please get in the know. Please get in the know about how that works. But you can call me offline about that.
And to be honest with you, you know, we have a lot of shortcomings with our unemployment. You know, I get calls from constituents every day, all day, about unemployment not being processed, or they haven't heard anything. The system got overloaded with unemployment claims, and so we still haven't paid out the majority of the claims. And now we're telling these people to go back to work, and they're like, "No, give me my money. I'm not going back to work because I don't want to get sick." And you have employers that are having a hard time getting employees to come back because of that. They don't have any policies in place to protect them. And so the employees would rather stay at home and collect that unemployment than risk their lives going to work.
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Well, Senator, we are certainly better off than we were when we started this conversation, and definitely deeper in the know. And for that, we are forever grateful. If you would, Shamel, drop into the chat if folks want to continue a conversation with Senator Robinson, or if you just like to follow her, we have all of that information for you. Make sure that you do that. And I sent that in privately to you, Shamel, so you can drop that in there for them. And also, it is so important for us that you take this message forward. We want you to understand what's happening, the politics of this pandemic, why it's important that you get involved. And Senator Robinson said it best. She's the best example. She is the double minority. She's a person that had no influence, no connections, and limited resources compared to her opponents. And she's been able to successfully run a campaign, be in office, and you've made significant changes, which is what warranted that comment that you're moving too fast for one of her constituents. And so you can do it too. If you have a desire to run for office, we need more people advocating and more people who want to be there to do what is right for their communities that they serve, so we can have a voice. It is the only way that change will in fact happen. Senator Robinson, is there anything that you would like to say to our viewing audience as we get ready to close?
Oh, I do see Serena. You're welcome. She was talking about the ACEs before discipline bill.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. It's so far up, so much stuff. She said, thank you for the ACEs before discipline bill. Can you tell us a little bit about that? That was a win for Senator Robinson.
Yeah, so the ACEs before discipline bill is just me asking that we require school administrators to be able to do assessments on our kids before they expel or suspend them from school. Sometimes these kids go to school, they haven't eaten in 2 days, they're watching their younger sister because their mama hasn't been home. Like they have so many issues at home, and we're worried about discipline. And that's the thing that kind of gets to me about education these days. We're more focused on discipline and education. And that bill is my effort to go in the right direction of educating the whole child, the way that you and I were probably educated as kids, where we had teachers who were able to build that connection, that relationship with us, that inspired us to be better than we were before we came through those doors. And so the ACE before discipline bill just requires the administrators to look at how that child is performing based on what their home life is like, and be able to extend resources and support to those families to help improve their lives.
Wow. Well, thank you for that. Thank you for doing what is right for our children and the most vulnerable in the community. And these are the types of public servants that we need, not people who are doing it for show, and not people who are doing it for status, but people who are doing it because they want to make a difference and because they want to do what's right. And so she said, yes, several scholars and I are hitting the ground running with this. You gave our kids a nationwide gift. We can give you a virtual round of applause. Thank you, Senator.
Yay for y'all. Thank you.
We appreciate you. And so 3 things that I need from you guys before we get ready to close. Number 1, I want to make sure that you guys go follow Senator Robinson. Make sure you follow her so you can stay in the know on what's happening and pay this message forward. Then secondly, I need you guys to make sure that you're joining the inner circle. If you thought this was a great conversation, I promise you all 11 days have been, all 10 days so far have been amazing. And tomorrow will be equally as amazing as we round this out and close. So follow me at the Total Woman Summit and at Sherica Hymes. And then also, as soon as this is over, you're going to get a survey. We need you to participate in that survey and give us the feedback. That's how we keep bringing you the content and having the conversations that you want to have. And then last but not least, I need you to help me help those that are on the front line by providing them with PPE so we can keep them safe. Our good friends over at the Salvation Army, they need masks. So what I need you to do is 20 for 20. You can text COVID relief to 91999, or you can go to healthgearnow.com and you can get 20 masks for $20. It's totally tax deductible. And if you can do more than 20, do multiples of 20. We've got to keep those folks that are helping feed our children that are out of school safe, those folks who are helping provide services at the domestic violence shelter safe. We have got to keep the folks on the front line safe so they can continue to provide these services to the most vulnerable in our communities. And if you'll do that for me, it will be certainly appreciated. Thank you all so much for joining us tonight. It has been a joy. Senator Robinson, thank you again for the gift of time. Thank you for your service. Happy Mother's Day to you again, and to all the mothers that are joining us. Happy Mother's Day, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Thank you so much. Have a good night.
Thank you.